after that, the boys grew up without a mother or dad. Her long, cruel life stayed true to the end, when she died alone in her run-down old home. Lonesome in life, lonesome in death, for all that she suffered I'll never forget. For the pain in her life she deserved more in death. Lonesome in life, lonesome in death. Lonesome in life, lonesome in death.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it on north of here in the shopping mall. Where'd the old town go? Did my hometown get old, or just me? Did all my friends get old, or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told, or just me?
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, where you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. The Kiwanis are having their pancake day right outside the studios here this morning, right by the Ballhead Bistro. Pancakes, all you can eat for $6, and that's sausage and the juices and everything that goes with it. They'll only be here till 10:30. The Walker Valley Jazz Band and Bluegrass Band is out there playing, so come on down. Deb, introduce our special guest in our program today.
Good morning, Ron. We're going to be talking about the Benjamin Cleveland this morning, who Cleveland was named after. First of all, let me say it is April the 6th, 2013, and we'd like to thank all of our listeners who so loyally tune in each week. We're always surprised at the number of people that listen to the show. We have three fellows in here with us this morning. We have Phil Newman, Van Deacon, and Hassan. How do you say your last name, baby? Najjar. He's a nice South Carolina boy with a big fancy name.
But,
and he is the new
we can't call him
director.
Sam because his mama calls him Sam. He don't, Hassan. Did I get close? Hassan?
Hassan.
Oh, Hassan.
All right. We got it now.
I'm not going to say it again now.
We're going to be talking about the activities going on at the Museum Center and the new Benjamin Cleveland statue that we're so proud that we're getting here in Bradley County. And, Van, let's start with you.
Tell us why we're doing a statue. I mean, tell us how that came about.
Well, really.
Get right in front of that microphone.
I guess I better.
I know you can talk loud.
You want to close drive it?
There you go.
Oh, okay. That'll work. I guess when Stan Evans first came to Cleveland, he and May came to Cleveland, and one of the things that they noticed was that there was no statue of Colonel Benjamin Cleveland, and I'm going to use a 50-cent word, the eponym for whom Cleveland was named.
Can you spell that so I can look that up later?
EPONYM.
Okay.
You can ask Phil to define it for you.
Okay.
But and that sort of prompted the discussion, and eventually, under the leadership of Phil Newman, the Sons of the American Revolution engaged in a fundraising drive to build to construct the statue. I won't say build it, but actually that's part of the process. You have to build it. But maybe we can get Josh to talk about that, or we can talk about it later on. And it's taken about 4 years, hasn't it, Phil?
A bit of it, yeah.
So, and finally, this past year, a local sculptor, and he just did an outstanding job. I mean, really impressive.
I've seen the pictures. It
Now,
is.
how did we know what he looked like?
We really have no idea what his facial features are, but there's a lot of descriptive accounts of his size.
Yes.
So
he was rather a large fella, I
rather
understand.
large, that is correct.
What are y'all talking? Y'all keep talking about large people.
Yeah,
I'm just. Doesn't it disgust you?
I'm
when you-
leaving myself.
even though he was known as Old Roundabout. And
That's
But
what,
they meant it in the nicest sort of way.
and Cleveland's been known that way too. The old roundabout here too. You know, we have a few places that.
but it was a forensic accretion of information.
Basically, what we do have is some, I guess, sketches and etchings of some of his relatives at that period of time. Then you have a whole host of folks that claim to be kin to Colonel Cleveland's, and what we chose to do is just try to put together a composite of all the above.
The main reason is just to honor the person
That is correct.
and for our namesake.
That is
Right.
correct. That is correct.
Well, that is so interesting. And when we posted probably at the early stages of the statue online this week, the question someone asked is, why didn't we do this 100 years ago? But the good news is that someone has taken the initiative and done it now. And it is part of our history. Although during the time of the Revolutionary War, we were still the Indian nation here. But everything that happened away from here affected us greatly.
I always have to throw this in somehow. We didn't do it 100 years ago. The same reason we tore down the beautiful old courthouse. And we had this beautiful old courthouse here, and then we've got this new courthouse, and they put that red brick on it recently, and that's called putting lipstick on the pig.
That's
So-
right.
Well.
That's right.
but-
Well, it's sort of a white elephant. Over
Oh,
there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, well, so, but that a lot of communities do an excellent job in preserving history, and some have not done it, and we tend to be a little bit more guilty on that, on the not preserving history as much as we should, and but thanks to the SAR, this is a community group who's doing this, and not the city of Cleveland or Bradley County. I don't know if did they ever give any funds on this or not, or is this purely all right.
Well,
funds?
the city's certainly been very cooperative and helped us in every way. They've provided the location as
Right.
And we will be handing over the statue to the city
Good.
at this dedication.
It is very exciting, actually, and it's very nice to have that new little park. I guess we're calling
What's
it
the name
down
of that park?
First
I
Street
call
Park.
it the new park.
First Street Plaza.
First
Plaza.
Street
We
I
call
call
it
it the new park.
But it's really exciting to have that, and it's very exciting to see this statue going in there as the centerpiece for it. And we've got the chieftain down at the museum center now so that he can be protected, and hopefully we'll get a cover over him someday so that he will not suffer any more rotting.
I'm looking at the director of the museum. and she said that.
Santa's just sitting here nodding his head at us.
Said, I just went to work yesterday. Give me a break. Cities get named for different reasons, and Bradley County got named after General Bradley. I think Edward Bradley was his
Edward.
name.
Correct.
My understanding is that Andrew Jackson owed him a horse bet, and so that was his payment for the money that he had lost or he owed, that he named the county after him. So that's how we become Bradley County. Who named Cleveland Cleveland? Was that the governor who named that, or how did he get the name Cleveland from him?
Basically, the Tennessee legislature
Okay.
named the city to be Cleveland.
Right, after Benjamin Cleveland. All right, so now many of us lived here many years, just knew it was Cleveland, Tennessee, never thought about where we got the name. So tell us who Benjamin Cleveland was. I mean, why are we honoring him by a city? What tell us all the particulars about that. Go into detail. We got 2 hours.
And when we figured out how Van Deeken convinced somebody to come help him do something, he told me we'd be on the air for 15 minutes. So, Phil,
So he's prepared.
so
I think it's best to start with the fact that in the South during the Revolutionary War, there were, of course, the two sides. The Loyalists or the Tories, and then what we would call today the Patriots, or those seeking freedom from England. But in the course of the war, in the South particularly, and because of the frontier nature of the South at that time, the British tended to use the Indian to do a lot of, let's say, their dirty work for them. In other words, the people on the frontier in the mountain areas of what's now Tennessee, North Carolina, suffered a lot of Indian raids at the time. And again, this was at the bidding of the British authorities at the time. This created a great deal of animosity, especially against neighbors who were considered loyalists, and they were not affected by these Indian raids. And so it generated probably the darkest chapter of the Revolutionary War as far as neighbor versus neighbor. I mean, quite vicious in many accounts.
Now, people don't. I think Van was talking about this earlier before we came on. Is that we hear about that in the Civil War, but we don't realize about that when we come to the Revolutionary War.
I think it was far more severe than the Revolutionary War.
Isn't that something?
The
brutality, the hostility and the brutalities of warfare at that time.
Well, and there was not very much policing of the activities. There were people who just took the law in their own hands. And I think that some people don't realize, too, that we actually have a fort in Polk County that was left over from this part of the Fort Marr, and it had been down in front of the old jail for years. The poor thing has been moved about 5 or 6 times, but now it's at the G Creek Welcome Center, and they've put a new roof on it and moved it and prettied it up, and it's just fabulous. And we're so fortunate to have that fort here. And we lost so many of those. There were lots of those here.
And, those were really the outposts of Western European civilization. Most of these families were here, and I like to do a little research before I go talking about things. What is it they say? Load up your mind before you shoot off your mouth. But
I never do that.
Van, when did you start this?
Yeah, I started last week.
I've known you a long time here. I wonder when you started that.
But the real interesting thing is the history of religious persecution in Europe. And we think as children we always heard about the French Huguenots. We heard about the Reformation and so forth. But we really don't realize our heritage here in East Tennessee, and particularly in East Tennessee, is a heritage of Scots-Irish Presbyterianism. And when they came to the colonies and moved across the Alleghenies, across the Appalachians, they were not in the United States. They were in lands claimed by states. For instance, those people that are doing genealogy learn early on that East Tennessee wasn't called East Tennessee until those activities in the late 1780s, early 1790s. That before that time, East Tennessee was in effect, was the Western District of North Carolina.
So you'll find relatives.
And the state of Franklin came along in there somewhere too.
And the Watauga Association. But these were not the United States. Those were not American in the sense of national outposts of civilization, just like Fort Marr, Armistead, and some of the others, Fort Deposit and
Fort Loudon.
And the one up in Kingston.
I don't.
Fort Depot, was that what it was called? But those were the outposts of civilization. And of course, at that time, it was the
wilderness.
It was a British civilization, although there were other activities on the continent, the French in the north and the Spanish in the south. The only reliable military force was that of Great Britain. And George III was not kindly disposed towards the activities of a lot of land speculators who had come into East Tennessee, or what became East Tennessee, and made deals with some of the Indians for the purchase of lands. And but those were all what we look back to in our heritage as that movement west. Manifest destiny was the term that was used 50, 60 years later. But that was the destiny in the East, especially in our neighborhood.
Well, I think Faye Calloway from the Charleston Historical Society often says this, that if you were standing over in Calhoun looking across the Hiwassee River, you were looking at a foreign country across the river. Here in Bradley County, it was the last Cherokee Nation east of the Mississippi, and you had to have, quote, a passport to legally come into this area. And there were a lot of people that tried to come in illegally, and they were booted out, as you are speaking
those
of.
licenses by the agents of the government and by the Indians themselves. So.
It was really interesting. And then when we got a little closer to the time that the Indians were going to be removed, they went ahead and divided this area up into the districts, and they allowed one white person with some sort of talent to come into each district. And I know that Ron's great grandpa came in down at the area we call Green Shadow Lake now. And I know that we're really excited because Lee University's down there going to do an archaeological dig. And so we're so excited about that. But he came into that area. He was the justice of the peace. He was the surveyor. He was the everything down there. He was the official person in that area, and that happened to a lot of people when you find them here prior to 1838.
I still can't figure out how we ended up at Tinga, Georgia, though.
Well, it was cheap.
Here we are. We come in and have first choice, and we get Bonerges area and Easley Ford and Tinga, Georgia.
I'll tell you exactly what happened is when he died, he had all these descendants, and they sold off the land, and then they each moved out and bought cheaper lands, which would have been over in the edge of Georgia where there were no roads developed or anything like that, and you could buy massive farms, which is what you had to have then. You had to have a massive farm to be able to feed your family and make money.
Why couldn't we have bought downtown Chattanooga?
There you go.
I mean, that would have been a little bit better. But, Phil, we're going to Cleveland. Where was he from originally? And
actually, I think he was born in Virginia, moved into North Carolina, and then later into South Carolina. But going back to that period of time, we think of our forefathers, Benjamin, the Franklins and the Adams, and all. Those were very polished people. But many of our leaders of the South were not polished. Let's put it that way. They were really men of the land. Many of them were in defiance of the British authorities by moving into the Indian territories, and they really had very little loyalty to any government form at that time.
So how did they decide? How did people decide that they were going to be a Tory or a patriot? I mean, was it like the Civil War that was a one big issue that you went with, or is it because you just felt loyal to the British? You were a British subject when you were here still, right? You were still a British.
You had the major divide, which was a religious divide, the expulsion of the seceders and the Covenanters of the Church of Scotland, which was controlled by the Church of England. That moved out of Scotland through the Ulster district, which would be equivalent to the upper, 8 counties of Ireland, which is now, 6 of them are known as Northern Ireland. But you had them moving from County Antrim, where my family came from, as they passed through Ireland. They most of them came in through the mid-Atlantic ports, Philadelphia, being one of the major ones. They came in and immediately moved west to Beverly Manor and what became Augusta County, Virginia, and is now known as, it's Pendleton, West Virginia now. But they came into those areas and settled, and all through those years, I guess you'd say that Cleveland, Benjamin Cleveland, was a first generation. He was born in 1738, which is pretty much at the end of the major immigrations. But all of them, as it turns out, I say all of them because different folks will say otherwise, I guess, but about 90% of them were Calvinists. They were Scots-Irish, they were Presbyterians, and they were violently opposed to the Church of England as well as to Roman Catholicism because of the oppression that the monarchy had used in terms of pressure on them to get them to comply. And all of them, the two major groups, the Seceders and the Covenanters, they felt that the Church of Scotland was errant, that they were in error, and so they left. And they were those that felt that they needed, and we ended up with a constitution that embodies it, is separation of church and state. Interesting corollaries as to what's going on in the country today. But
I
that's
think
what it was all about.
It is, but I think a little different there is what's going on today is people are just trying to influence votes. They're not controlling it, although they want to control it. Did the Scotch-Irish tend to come a little bit more southern, arrive into the country a little bit more southern than the northern areas because of
you can almost tell
because of the English and the Scotch and all those people not really agreeing, and the English landed Plymouth Rock. And did the Scotch-Irish?
They landed, Ron, as religious groups. If you know that your family's Protestant, you can watch, and they'll all come into the same port, like maybe in North Carolina instead of in Philadelphia. You can kind of follow them that way by their nationality and by their religion. They came into different ports, and then they almost make the same immigration down into the Indian lands in the same pattern. But I think a country translation of what you were saying would be
y'all start this way.
Well, you have that first generation that came that might have been somewhat, although they were opposed to England, they were still connected there. And then as you get the second and third generation, by the time you get to the third generation, they don't feel connected to England anymore, and they want to come in here and get their own farmland and their own pretty little wife and make their own living that way.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
How you doing, Ron?
Hey, fine, Brad. How are you?
Good.
So, what's going on?
Hey, I was going to tell you we beat Mark's team yesterday.
The Braves beat the Cubs.
Yes.
Okay, I had to interpret there for you. Okay, so what was the score?
It was 4-1.
4-1. When's the basketball finals?
Starting tonight.
All right, who plays who?
Who's on first?
Wichita State plays Louisville.
All right.
I was going to tell you the next Braves game.
Okay.
Starting tonight.
All right, who are they playing tonight? The Cubs again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tonight and tomorrow.
All right. What time tonight?
7:10.
And tomorrow at 1?
Yeah, the same time.
Okay. And I just want to say, when you talk about Louisville and the guy Kevin Ware, I don't want to mention it. Takes me back to Joe Theismann when he broke his leg, and of course Joe Theismann told me one day I got to meet him. He said that he didn't break his leg, and I said, I watched you on TV. He said, no, Lawrence Taylor broke my leg.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
Not 7:10, 1:35.
1:35. Okay. All right.
A day game.
Oh, well, great. All right. Thank you, Brett.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. That's Whoop's roving sports reporter there. Hassan,
Before we get started,
you're going to have a lot of answers here in a minute too, aren't you? Okay, all right. Phil, Colonel Cleveland was at. My mind just went blank. What's the
Kings
mountain?
Mountain.
Kings Mountain. Boy, that just went. Woo. Kings Mountain. Is that sort of his big claim to fame, or
that is as far as Cleveland's concerned here? I'd say
Yeah.
He, along with 8 other colonels, you had John Sevier, Campbell out of, I believe, Virginia. A number of folks had their community militias, and when the word was out that Ferguson was going to cross the mountain and burn out everybody that was not loyalist, they tended to band together, and that sort of sparked what become the Battle of Kings Mountain.
They have reenactments up there now, don't they?
They do.
Now, where is Kings Mountain? Somebody help
It's
me.
right across the North Carolina line in South Carolina. It's actually in South Carolina.
Field trip for Ron and I, sounds like.
But
We have
they-
been doing that this probably for the past year. We've been to battlefield after battlefield, to museum after museum, and really enjoying. I think that we've done a good job of preserving history in some places. Have done a fantastic job in some places.
Of course, Chickamauga is an unbelievable battlefield. I think, let's say Gettysburg is about, I haven't been there yet, but that's about as good. Hassan, grab a mic over there real quick there. Welcome to Cleveland, first thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you formerly have been living in Chattanooga, or are living in Chattanooga. And
Currently,
you
yes.
was the assistant director of the Hunter Museum, I believe.
No, I was the curator of education there.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yes.
At the Hunter, yeah.
Yes, at the Hunter.
I went down and seen the rock posters they had down there.
Yeah, Sound and Vision.
Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. Well, like I say, welcome again. You got anything to add to this discussion? You're a South Carolina kid.
Well, I was going to just jump in on Kings Mountain. That is a really nice facility. They redid that, I want to say, back in 2000, close to 2000. Redid the whole place, built a new visitor center. It's a great day trip to go out there. It's near Clover, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to do
It's
that.
wonderful. Yeah.
We had started to, of course, it's a Civil War site, Pearville, the other day, and it decided it was going to snow. So we went south down to Booth Museum in Cartersville.
Yeah.
And if you have not seen the Western Museum
Yeah.
in Cartersville, it's a big surprise and a beautiful place to see.
It's a huge facility, too.
And they have the best hamburger I think I've eaten in years.
Oh, it's unbelievable there. Also, they have a room that's dedicated to the presidents. They have a letter written or signed by every president from George Washington up. Now, they may not have been president when they signed this particular letter, but they have the handwriting.
Impressive
everyone,
collection.
And then they tell all about the president. And they're putting all this together in a book. But it's sort of interesting to go there and see the old pictures of the president, see their actual handwriting, and read some of the letters. Some of them were attorneys and wrote things. I'm sorry, we have to read those attorneys.
But it was really worth the drive to go down. They have some of the original Russell statues. They had a Civil War exhibit, and right now they have the Saturday Evening Post exhibit. And so we missed it by one day. We've got to go back.
Norman Rockwell.
So, yeah,
Norman Rockwell.
And then you can leave there and go out and see the Cartersville had 4 courthouses, and their
Three of 'em
history-
still standing.
3 of them still standing. One of them's the history museum for their county, which is unbelievable. Then right underneath the train tracks that runs right through the middle of town, like they do in a lot of places, but they're overhead. They have the Appalachian Grill underneath there and little restaurants and different things. So neat little old town feel down
They
there.
still have the mining museum. Is that
We
part
did
of the
not
Western
make it.
Yeah.
The Tellus Museum. We didn't make
we
it
haven't
there.
been
We
there.
decided to go over the mountain just for a few miles and visit the Moonshine Distillery over in
Dawsonville.
Start.
and it was straight up and around to get there, but it was well worth
Went
it.
by all the marble manufacturing plants there. But,
mines, yeah.
In Dawsonville, they have the
Jasper.
Georgia NASCAR Hall of Fame museum, and right next door to that, they have the distillery, and right next door to that is City Hall. All in the same
Natural
building.
progression.
It's a national, and the mayor of the city is one of the official taste testers of the whiskey.
we went to Dawsonville because we're beginning to work on our Cleveland Speedway documentary, and went down there. A lot of dirt track racing history there, and the people in there in the museum knew about Cleveland, Tennessee, and their racetrack. This is where Bill Elliott, if you're a NASCAR fan, Bill Elliott's of Dawsonville. There's 11 NASCAR champions grew up in Dawsonville, Georgia. You can't get there from here. You got to start there,
53.
huh?
Go to Cartersville.
Yeah, go-
hang a left
yeah.
at the Cracker
Well, or-
Barrel and go 53.
Even quicker,
That's
go
what
to
we did.
Chatsworth, go across to LJ, then right down over to it. And it's quicker, actually.
I think you can go to Blue Ridge and go to LJ. and
Yeah,
go to.
all that way.
You
but,
can go lots of different
But it was
ways.
interesting that there was an actual old moonshiner who was in there and gave a tour of the distillery, and it was very educational. Then the dirt track racing, and then we went to the pool hall. That's where everybody eats, is the pool hall. And one of the guys who started racing, and of course it's been where everybody eats, and they have
Grant Perkle, I believe
yeah,
was his name.
no, the Grant
No.
Perkle's an insurance salesman here. His last
Well,
name is
Gordon.
Gordon
Gordon
Perkle.
Perkle. There you
there's
go.
But anyway, we were sitting in the pool room. That's what it is, and We had the Bully Burger. That was a guy who used to work there and cooked. He couldn't remember what the orders was, and he wouldn't write it down. So he just fixed the hamburger the way he liked them.
So they call them
And
bully
it wasn't
burgers.
normal. It was ketchup, chopped onions, coleslaw, and a pickle. And so everybody walked in and just said, "Give me a Bully Burger." And they said, "Do you like them?" "No, but that's what I'm going to get anyway." But anyway, we were sitting there, and a little old man walked in. Digress here just a second.
96
He's
years old.
96 years old, and he had been a POW. And he started telling us his stories there. And he'd just been to Channel 3 to record his history there. And then he mentioned that what he'd done after he got out there, he had been the official photographer for the Atlanta Braves for 41 years.
Wow.
Amazing.
So he said, "I've got a book. Would you like to buy it?" And I said, "Yes." "Well, you want to see it first?" "No." I said, "I just want to buy it." So I've got a picture of him autographed. So just unique who you find in the pool rooms.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We had a great time. But this is the kind of thing that we've seen the development downtown as the museum center has opened, and we just hope for more and more development down there to help preserve what history we have.
You got some activities coming around this down at the museum. You want to tell us what? Do you know yet?
I know a little bit.
Okay.
I brought a cheat sheet with
All
me.
right. I'm saying I don't know how long he's actually been on there. He may not even got moved in his office yet. I don't know.
No, I've been there I just finished my 3rd week.
Oh, okay. Well, great.
Mm-hmm.
Just being
Still learning.
big quiet, figuring out what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Just
Okay.
kind of
well,
absorbing.
Tell us about what's going to be happening. I know the monument is in the 11th.
Well, on the 19th, Patriots
19th.
Day.
19th, okay.
In fact, you mentioned the 19th of April. Patriots Day was instituted in the state of Tennessee as a result of the activities of our chapter. Doug Carpenter and some of the others had worked diligently for 4 years, was it, Phil?
Wow.
To get April the 19th, which of course was the battle of Bunker Hill and the morning after Paul Revere's famous ride. But that was named Patriots Day as a result of our activities locally. And that's one of the things for the SAR.
Yeah, that Paul Revere, there's always when you have a good poet, you become famous.
Longfellow.
Yeah.
Right, but now see, Paul Revere didn't go as far as Israel Bissell did.
But they couldn't find anything that
Israel
rhymed with
Bissell.
Bissell.
What is wrong with that? Let's see. Or missile.
Look up Israel Bissell. He actually rode a whole lot further and killed 2 or 3 horses on his ride and all that stuff. So, but remember Paul Revere.
Here we go digressing again. There's a great commercial on TV now where he picks up his cell phone. Paul Revere
yeah,
does and
I've
goes,
seen that.
"Yeah, yeah, Bridge is coming."
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
All right,
And who's the Paul Revere of the South? Is that Gadsden? Or no?
I don't know. Tell
it's
us.
Brett here in Cleveland. He tells everything goes on.
No, I remember a guy that took a horse from Rome to Gadsden to tell him that the
Did he steal it, or
that
was
the
he?
Union he may have.
Oh,
He
the
may have
Union.
sold it. Tell us what's going on there.
Around the Benjamin Cleveland unveiling, we've got an exhibit going up. And we have several items that will be on display, and that exhibit will start, I guess, on the 19th.
Right after the unveiling, we'll start at 10 that morning.
Right.
And we'll then proceed over to the museum for a little brunch of some ilk. And
I know Van's going to say a few words.
No,
No?
this is all yours. big boy.
Okay, fine. I'll make something up. We'll have a few items on display, actually. We'll have multiple firearms from the period. I'm looking forward to seeing those, and those are going to be on loan from the National Society for the Sons of the American Revolution. So,
Excellent.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. We'll have really interesting part of a wedding dress from Martha Washington, also on loan from the National Society for the Sons of the American Revolution. We'll have some reproduction uniforms from the period, a few prints that'll be depicting scenes from the Revolutionary War, and then we'll also have some currency from the era. So that'll be unveiled on that day, and hope everyone can stick around and see that.
Okay, is this open to the public?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay,
Yes,
good.
and we hope that
And
our-
I always mention on the show, if you're looking for really unique gifts, they have some of the finest regional artists that have beautiful things, jewelry, paintings. Our bee lady from Polk County has Appalachian bee honey in there, and soaps and things. And, of course, there's books there, too, including My Confederate Voices. And it's a great place to pick up a unique gift, especially a regional kind of gift.
Absolutely. You've got friends coming into town, people that are new in town. It's a great place. And what's so great about it, I like, is that all the artists that we represent in the store are from 200-mile radius or smaller, and so it's nice to be able to have that kind of local flavor instead of a lot of stores have gifts just something that's made in China. And, so it's nice to have some real local artists represented.
And it's high quality stuff too.
Oh,
I think some of the woodworking is incredible that's in there. I know that you guys have a spring art festival coming up at the end of April. What's the dates on that?
Yeah, the Bloomin' Arts Festival is coming up. I believe
it's
going to be the 26th, 27th, 28th. I think it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
It is, I think. And on the 26th, it's on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And that's open to like members only.
Yeah, that's the preview party.
The preview party. And then Saturday's going to be activities all day long, including activities for children, I believe. And then Sunday afternoon. And I think that I'm going to be there signing books and things on the Friday night and Saturday afternoon.
Caney Creek.
We're going to have we're looking to get the Museum Center has invited us to put the Caney Creek stuff in there. We just haven't gotten there with it yet. We did sell out from our documentary, which was a real blessing. We've reordered and the new order's in. And so we'll have that stuff there. And, of course, I'll be signing Confederate Voices. I found out that men who have husbands that have everything enjoy getting Confederate Voices for their birthday, because that's where I sell a lot of them, for gifts like that.
You're listening to Whoop FM. This is Old Town Cleveland here at 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here in the studio at 614-5553. And we're talking about Colonel Benjamin Cleveland. New statue coming up on April 19th. First time we've ever had a statue of Benjamin Cleveland. Deb, you have something?
I do. I just want to say happy anniversary to Big Springs Baptist Church. This weekend they're celebrating their 100th anniversary of that church. And they had some activities last night at the church, have some things there today and tomorrow. And I hope if you have attended there before, you'll go by and visit with them. It's the 100th anniversary of the Big Springs Baptist Church there on Wildwood Avenue. And we had a big announcement coming from the Rebel Restaurant. Starting the 11th, which is a Thursday night, they're going to be open Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday nights. All day until 9 p.m. So you can go by and get you a Lottaburger. And we know the first 3 evenings starting at 5:30, Shane Lowe, a graduate of Bradley High School, is going to be there playing live music. And I think it's going to be a good time, and I hope everybody will support them. Tomorrow, Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., at the Athens Courthouse, the McMinn County Historical Society's meeting, and they're going to be talking about the history of the Old Line Railroad, which runs through Polk County, I believe, and that might be something that our listeners would like to participate in. 2 p.m.
Runs from Etowah all the way up to, and does the loop and goes up to Copper Hill. Farner, actually, where you... Farner. Also, you need to get your pencil and paper out right after the top of the hour. I've got a homework assignment for all our listeners. We have several things that we need for you to start gathering for us. We do have a new documentary that we're working on, the Cleveland Speedway, and Deb is working on another book right now called The Historical Homes of Bradley County. And we're not talking about just the ones on Ocoee Street. We're talking about the little farmhouse down on the county line that might be 150 years old. So we're looking at all those, and hopefully we'll have a driving map that we'll create with the book also, so you can drive by and look at these houses. So,
matter of fact, in the last, and Hassan probably doesn't know this, but in the last couple of years, I found a house down on Dalton Pike that just looked like a 1900s farmhouse from the outside, but I kept researching and finding indications that Judge Martin, who was the judge here before the removals, house was still standing, and I found it had been moved.
It's where he was also the treasurer of the Cherokee Nation. It's where all the Cherokee records were in this house, and the troops circled the house and captured all the Cherokee records. and still don't know where they are till today.
And
But-
took them to Charleston and held them and the people up there.
And
But because of that, it's significant to the Trail of Tears, and now it's a significant site on the National Trail of Tears.
That's great.
Yeah, that was fun.
Wonderful.
I was out in Oklahoma this fall, and all of a sudden the picture popped up on the screen, and I was so excited because it was from Bradley County. But we have a lot of great things going on at the museum, and I hope that we can work out something that maybe about this time next year we can do a big display for the Cleveland Speedway there
Yeah.
too.
one other
let's
thing
talk
we
about
have
that.
to announce, we just cannot bypass this. 1 year ago today, Avery Rose Coleman, our granddaughter, was born. So today is her first birthday, and my daughter's at my house decorating it for her first birthday. I told her I didn't think Avery would remember all these decorations, and I really think it's for Mama.
Only the photographs.
Only the photograph. But yeah, so happy birthday, Avery.
Yeah,
Happy
1 year old.
birthday.
Let's go back to Mr. Cleveland here. He had relatives that lived here in Bradley County, although he himself never lived here. We believe his brother.
And we've got we've invited everyone that we knew that had some relationship to Colonel Cleveland. And we have several members of Robert, his brother's family, who are residents of Bradley County.
I understand so, yes.
And we have some direct descendants. One family from Roanoke, Virginia. He was originally born up in, what was the name of that county up there?
In
Orange
Virginia?
Orange County, Virginia, in 1738. And so he's got a rather extensive family. And it was interesting, this one lady that had sent me some emails and we had corresponded. Her middle name was Cleveland. And she made the comment that he had to have some rather special furniture, whether it was funerary furniture in terms of the size of the casket or his bed or his chair. But that's how. But
So some folks in the family still have
They're
those
there.
extra large pieces of furniture. Oh, I'd love to see those.
I think that
Super
Let's
sized.
just move on.
but they're here.
But
We know some other families
Right.
like that, don't we? So-
okay, well, this Robert Cleveland and his descendants lived up on what we now call Walker Valley Road.
Right.
And they married into the Blythe family, as in Blythe Ferry Road and Blythe's Ferry over in Meigs County. And some of them are actually buried out in one of Ginger Wilson Buchanan's fields, and the family has taken care of that cemetery for years. Now, when I say taking care of it, a lot of times what would happen is that over the years the old farmers would pluck up the tombstones and
Pile them under a tree.
pile them up somewhere and plow the field. Well, they have managed to leave that little patch of a cemetery there, and there are actually some Cleveland people buried there.
is that the one you see right out there in the middle of the
Yeah,
field?
Yes.
on the left.
Yeah.
They have
North.
Spriggs and Clevelands buried there. And, of course, you guys know I get questions from all over about history, and they said there was a Methodist church on the main road from Charleston to Cleveland back in the 1840s and 50s. Do you know where that might be? And I said, well, I would guess it was out there in the middle of that flat field where those people are buried, because here in East Tennessee, you would never bury somebody out in a flat part of the land unless there was a church there. Or Indians' families would bury their people right next to the house. But I would suspect that the church was right in there, and that's the cemetery for the church, because typically we would bury people up on the side of the hill where you couldn't grow anything. And so the cemetery is in disrepair now. What we need is either a church group or some concerned group that can come in there and just probably level out the ground and
Be a
stand
good Eagle Scout project.
it would stand the tombstones back up, and maybe put some kind of sort of fence around it or something. But they have done a good job maintaining it, and people come from all over the country to visit that little cemetery that their namesakes. And right now, when the wheat's not high, you can still see, when you're driving up through there, you'll see all the winter wheat real low and lush and green, and you'll see this one brown spot in the middle of the field. Well, that's where it is.
We have an Eagle Board meeting next Tuesday night, so I think
It would be
I'll
an
mention that.
excellent, and the groundhogs have gotten in there as they often do in that kind of situation. But there's some of the old permanent plants there, the yucca plants and the ivy and stuff. So people at some point in time had maintained that cemetery, but that's one that's in real disrepair. But we know that they lived up there during the Civil War. They were already leaving the area at that time, and I believe they fought on the Confederate side. Some of them did. Elijah Cleveland did. He was on the Confederate side.
Debbie, one of the things that we would like to encourage you and Ron to do, and maybe get Will involved, is to be over at the museum on the 19th and bring your videography equipment. Because we know there are a lot of relatives that have stories about, family stories.
Mm-hmm.
And if those are not preserved, they're going to be lost because they're not on the internet unless somebody's taking the time to reduce them to writing and to do it.
I think we may just have to arrange to do that then.
Yeah, and we've invited every member, extended family member that we know of, to come down. And we have a lot that live in the Abingdon area, Bristol, Roanoke, and as well as over in Wilkes County, or let's see, he died in Oconee County and was buried over there. He had moved to South Carolina after the American Revolution and was a county commissioner there. I'm talking about Colonel Cleveland. But we would like to preserve that record, and I know that's one of your all's. I should say not your all's, but y'all's.
Hey, we understand.
Y'all's. I
We
try to get
understood
away
that.
from
We
that,
understood
but
that.
but that's one of your passions,
Yes,
and that
well-
is the remembrance, the memorial aspect of all of these things that we're trying to do.
I think we'd be proud to do that.
On Candy Creek, I think that's the thing that made it so impressive is that we had those first-hand. You get the history from a first-hand standpoint when you have those elderly folks on there telling their own stories. That's much better than what some historian had written about it. And I think that's what we need to start doing more of here in Bradley
And if
County.
nobody's seen your presentation, if they didn't have an opportunity or they haven't seen the tape or the books, then they really need to take a look at that. That's the kind of thing that I feel that PBS ought to be doing.
That is was his first project. Like I say, he had done a 1-minute commercial.
So I was sure he could do a 45-minute video.
And with our encouragement too, saying here's a good history project. He jumped in on it and took a long time to learn what we were doing, and still don't know what we're doing. But a few mistakes here and there in it that we know exactly what to do to correct it on the next one. The next one will be even better, and the next one, and then the next one. And
Yeah,
I made a critique sheet that I'll share with you. But
Good.
no,
Sure do.
I thought it was excellent. I just loved it. So.
But how big was Cleveland? I mean, we keep kidding about how big it is. Do you have any idea how big he was? Now, don't insult me now.
Over 300 pounds.
You would probably fit in real well.
That's what I was.
City.
No, seriously.
No.
at the time of
Van thought you were talking about the population of Cleveland. How big was Cleveland?
No. We don't have big that way. We're talking about Colonel Cleveland.
Yeah, let's not.
they say the colonel. Most reports make the colonel's weight somewhere between 250 pounds to 300 pounds. Although there are others that are pretty sure that it was more like 350.
Oh.
So that's pretty well explains why he always had two horses.
Because I was saying 250 to
So now-
300 wasn't really a big guy.
Phil, why would he have two horses?
I would say, when you figure at that period of time, horses weren't as, let's say, they weren't as strong as the horses we have today, and you rarely saw anybody the size of Colonel Cleveland at that period of time. It's really unique. But he was known to be a stout person from a very early age, and tended to have his way in many brawls early on too. So
I think he's got a reputation of being, when we talk about Kings Mountain, he was telling his men, to fight their best fight and not to run away. And although I don't think he was actually able to ride up the hill and help them there, he was not one to back away or standoffish, I don't think, in the war at all.
No, actually, his horse was shot out from under him in an attempt to go forward. They did bring another horse forward, and he continued to direct his men. At the time of his death, Ron had asked just how big he was. He was so large at the time of his death that they had to dismantle part of his dwelling to get him out. He was in excess of 500 pounds.
Wow. Do we know if he ever actually visited Cleveland, Tennessee?
No. There was reports that he and a hunting party actually came through what is now Tennessee at one point in time, but it's probably a little more east of Cleveland.
Yeah.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
How you doing this morning, Ron?
I'm doing fine, Bullet. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. I was going to say hello to Mr. Van Deeken and your other guest. I'm loving hearing you talking about the name Robert. I love that first name, Robert.
I wonder why, Robert.
And I'm going to ask Mr. Van Deeken, has he ever been to Dawsonville and sampled that distillery down there?
No comment.
No comment.
He has his own distillery in his house.
Let's not even go there, Ron.
He makes beer.
Anyway, I like Mr. Van Deeken.
Okay.
You see him around. And where you going to have that monument? Are you going to have where you going to put it at?
It's going to be down in the parking lot there at 5 Points across the street from the museum center.
Well, you know that and it stands up there at Old Coy there. I think that's a monument of an Indian, right?
No, that's the monument. The one on Ocoee Street at 8th Street is the Civil War. It's the Confederate monument.
The reason I like that one because that's where I had my motorcycle wreck, and every time I go by there, I always do a salute to it.
Well, at least you didn't knock him over, Robert.
Anyway, I just wondered about that. Are they going to be at the dedication or something for it?
Yes, on April the 19th at 10 o'clock in the morning, they're going to unveil it and let everybody get a good look at it, and then walk over to the museum center, and you can walk through and see some of the things from that time period that they'll have there.
Are you just going to be anywhere today, Deb, signing, or are you just not going to do anything today? Or
We're having a birthday party for our grandbaby today.
I heard about that, and that's awful nice.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I'll let you go.
She's the boss. All righty. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention here while we're kind of stopped for a second, on April the 20th will be the Historical Society and Lee University and Cleveland States all join forces, and we have the historical tour of homes in downtown Cleveland. We're going to do the Hardwick House that has just been remodeled on just up south of the library, and I know that's one that everybody wants to see. We're going to do a tour of St. Luke's Episcopal Church, which is always a big hit too. And then I know there's one house on Centenary Avenue, and I'm not sure about the other locations, but that's always a good tour, and I hope everybody will join us. On April the 14th, we're going to have a Historical Society meeting here at Cleveland Library, and we have a fellow coming from Jasper, Georgia, that has done extensive research on the Indian trail markers, and it's the bent trees. And I know that Ron and I saw one. We kept looking at one out on Harrison Pike, and I said, I think that's a bent tree. And the next time we came by, somebody had sawed it down. So we really need to be educating people about that, because I'm sure there's some down in the Flint Springs community too.
All right. Since I mentioned home brewing, the brouhaha coming up at the museum.
Well, it was, and
It's already passed?
Well, we're going to have to pass for the April. It's supposed to have been today.
Oh, okay.
But they're talking about doing it again in August. So
August, okay.
That'll be their decision.
It was kind of fun to go by and do that.
Yeah, you were in good shape. I remember.
Yeah, we came by and visited with everyone.
Well, I came by and tasted some of Van's
Brew.
concoctions, and I had to say, well, I'm not sure which one I liked the best, and went through them a couple more times, so I got a good idea.
Now, Van, you would enjoy going over to the distillery in Dawsonville, because the fella takes you in the back and explains to you how he doesn't put sugar in his shine, that he only uses yeast, and you would probably really enjoy the country chemistry of it all.
If you don't have sugar in the shine, you don't get a hangover.
You don't get alcohol.
Well, yeah, you do. 'Cause, you have to let it ferment, right? You have to let the corn sprout, which makes the natural yeast. So you got to go down there and learn.
You got to go down there and learn.
That's a little different mechanism.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it is.
But yeast are some of the most wonderful animals in the world. You know that.
But that stuff coming out of that still that was
Yeah.
It was definitely
that or
alcohol.
turpentine they'd bring through there. I know.
Yeah,
Sure which one.
Anyway, that's enough of that.
That's
I think
another
you all
story.
need to move on.
Okay.
Let me mention something about
Go
the
ahead.
museum and the programs down there. You know, the museum is such a critical component of the history of our community, and it is really imperative that we support that museum, because if we don't leave an archive of the history of our community, then our children and our great grandchildren and generations to come won't have any access to it. They won't have a remembrance, if you will. And that's one of the things that the museum board over the last few years has been working toward, is building that cultural resource and providing for the area a place, a repository, if you will, so that we'll have an opportunity to go back and use it. Libraries are all becoming electronic. It's amazing what's available on the internet. But in order to go see or to locate, to find those artifacts that are a necessary component of any museum, you're going to have something like the museum at 5 Points, and they've done a fantastic job.
Oh, we talk about that here on this show. The last thing we say every week is that you've got to save the history on your street in your family. We'll always know about Pearl Harbor, but we may not know about what's going on in your family, your street. And just think, we're not going to have photographs anymore. People don't take photographs and have them printed. All you have now is what's on your phone, and they get erased. Or you don't have letters anymore. You don't have everything is done electronically, and it gets erased very easily. You know, the computer crashes. So it's not like having an old drawer in your house that has full of pictures. I know Phil and all of us have drawers full of old pictures. Don't have any idea who they are anymore, which is a sad thing too. But
well, absolutely. I just want to tell on what Van's saying here is that the museum it's a critical part for any town, especially the size of Cleveland, for us to tell the story of the region, of the people that live here, of the people that used to live here. We have a massive collection, and I've just been here for 3 weeks, and I was able to go last week for the first time into our storage and look at some of the items that we have, and I was blown away. The collection that we do have is really impressive. The big problem, that I'm seeing here as the new director is we just don't have room to put it on display.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah, this is T. Bandy.
Hey T. Bandy.
What's going on, buddy?
I just wanted you to announce my fish truck that's going to be running the 27th
Of April?
of April. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
You going to have anything special that day?
We'll have them new catfish.
Okay.
Yeah. But Merlin will probably be running it.
Oh, okay.
I'm supposed to go Tuesday and getting my knees cut off.
Well, let's just hope they repair them and don't cut them off. Okay, that sounds good. And just call us and remind us. So on the 27th, if anybody needs any fish for their ponds, they can come see you, and they can call and order anything special at 478-2405.
what kind does he usually have with him?
With what?
What kind does he usually bring with him?
They bring bluegill, bass,
Carp, grass carp.
grass carp. I sell a lot of them this time of year too, and they're $12.50 a piece. They're 8 to 11 inches long.
Oh.
All right.
And
We always tease him about, does he have anything that's fried or grilled? Yeah. No, nothing fried or grilled.
It's quite how hot it is. That's the reason they quit in the summertime.
All righty, T. Thanks.
They have koi's on there too.
Okay.
All right.
Koi's.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, dear.
Bye-bye.
Directly.
All right. How funny. That's our official fish report. What?
Follow that up now.
Well, we don't have any fish at the museum per se.
We're talking about exhibits and things. I know you have tons of stuff and facility and to get a new facility or add to facility.
Well,
it's money.
Yeah, that's a big
bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the annual appeal that's going out to our memberships should be hitting their boxes probably Monday, Tuesday this week. And so, it's one of my first things communications I've been able to send out to the membership. And so what I've laid out for them is a plan, an interim plan for us. What we'd like to do is we'd like to reconfigure a little bit of our permanent gallery space right now. There's a lot of wasted space in there. And to make a section that we can show temporary shows in. Bring out some of those items that we have in the archives and put them in themes that make sense, and then program around those exhibitions. So we really need supplies for that. As you know, in a museum, we've got all kinds of environmental controls that need to be monitored, humidity, temperature, for things that most people probably know this. If you're going to keep something historic, it can't have fluctuating temperatures up and down, and the humidity levels can't be fluctuating. So we need to purchase some monitors that we can put in place to help us monitor that. And once we're able to get that under control, we're hoping to bring in some exhibits from other places around the country. Smithsonian does a wonderful program where they send out exhibits to museums, and you have to qualify for those. Your temperature and your humidity and a lot of other factors have to be
we had one of those
control.
at the Cleveland Library, the Journeys one, and had good participation with it from the Smithsonian.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, this is Khaled Najjar. I was wondering what Hassan was going to be doing for the museum here in town.
My brother. Calling from San Diego to harass me.
Oh, a caller from San Diego.
Yes, he's in the Navy.
Hey, y'all, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic.
Well, you know what? Talking again about these temporary exhibitions, we were going through the other day, me and our new curator of collections, Lisa Chastain, and she's excellent. She just started in January. Really professional person. I'm really glad to have her on the staff. And as we're going through, we get toward the end of the exhibit, and it ends at 2000s and beyond. And so the museum was built in '99. And so if you walk through the collection, apparently there's nothing happened after 2000. And we've had 13 years, the past 13 years, Cleveland's been blowing up. We've had this resurgence in manufacturing with and new industries with Walker and Amazon coming to town. And, Volkswagen's not too far down the road. We can't claim that, but, I mean, it's in the region. And so that's a whole nother chapter of history that we're not telling. So in the next couple months here, just to let my brother know, because I know he's really interested in this, the museum and I'm gonna drag him to some of these meetings as well. We're gonna start planning for the next 3 years, and we're gonna go through and we're gonna say, okay, we need to have these goals for year 1, these goals for year 2, and these goals for year 3, so we can position the museum in a state where that we're going to have a lot of improvement.
That sounds awesome. But what are you going to do to get people who usually don't go to the museum to start coming in? That's what I really
Wow,
I think just variety is going to make a difference. If you do different things that appeal to a different...
Well, you have social events.
Yeah. We've got a lot of social events, but I think one of the biggest things is the mission that we have in the museum needs to be updated, and we'll do that through strategic planning. I think with some of these temporary exhibitions, for our members, if you haven't been in the last, couple months or so, these temporary shows will really give them the reason to come back to the museum. We've had a lot of people over the years, and one of the things that I've only been here for 3 weeks. I feel like I've been here for a few months, but a refrain that I've heard is that we donated this artifact, several years ago, and we've never seen it on display. Well, this will be a great opportunity if we can just configure some space to be able to get some of these things out so people can see them.
Oh, that's exciting. What about local artists?
Oh, hang up on this guy.
Well, tell him about the gallery shop and the local artists.
Well,
plus the quilt show.
Let me tell you about a show we have up right now, actually. We've got 4 seniors from Lee University, and they've got a fantastic show up right now, and it'll be up until May 3rd. But these are their senior thesis projects. And if for art majors out there, if anyone knows anyone that's an art major, those senior thesis projects are really high quality. And so we're glad to have those up, and we've had quite a bit of students coming in over the past few weeks to check that out. Another exhibit that we have up right now are Tennessee schoolgirl samplers. And that's on display until April 13th. And we've got some local ones in there that date from 1819 to the mid-1850s. So some really nice examples of samplers. If anyone doesn't know what a sampler is, I don't think people do those much anymore. But they're really intricate. And I know that
it was something that the ladies were always, you had to be able to know how to drink tea, make a sampler, to show that you were
homemaking skills.
Right.
Thank you so much for calling. Your brother's waving by at you.
I know he is.
We've got to take our FCC break here. Thank you for calling.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Hey.
We're going to take about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back with you. Have a pen and pencil ready, a pen and a piece of paper ready when we come back. We're going to give you some contact information. Thank you.
WOOP LP, Cleveland, Tennessee.
Debbie Moore, co-host of Whoop's Old Town Cleveland, has released a regional history book, Confederate Voices. The book is available at the Red Ribbon, the Museum Center at 5 Points, and at www.oldtowncleveland.com. And be sure to tune in every Saturday morning at 10 for Old Town Cleveland, right here on Whoop FM. Pokey's Restaurant and Sports Bar on Sahara Drive in Cleveland has got great food, live bands, karaoke, pool tables, darts, and more. Plus, check out daily lunch specials Monday through Friday from 11 to 2. That's not all. Pokey's has got a brand new dinner menu with steaks, chicken, pork, and seafood dinners, and they're all delicious. Stop by and enjoy an appetizer, a specialty drink, lunch, or dinner anytime at Pokey's. And be listening for the new Wheel of Whoop with your chance to win cash. Coming soon to Pokey's, Sahara Drive, right here in Cleveland. Proudly serving the area since 1989. Call Pokey's today at 476-6059. Wheeler Technologies has moved. Visit them at their new location at 490 Grove Avenue Southwest next to Bradley Rentals. Same great folks, same great service with a better location to serve you. Call Wheeler Technologies for voice, data, and security needs at 664-TECH. That's 664-8324. And remember, depend on Wheeler Technologies for the current time and temperature every day at 476-1111. Tennessee Alarm Contractor C1750. The Village Bake Shop has been serving the sweet needs of folks in the area since 1961. Need a specialty cake? Well, all you need is a photo or just an idea, and Teresa at the Village Bake Shop will make sure you get that special cake for any occasion. I've enjoyed the Village Bake Shop for years and always got birthday cakes, wedding cakes, and more. Any cake for any special occasion from the Village Bake Shop is always fresh and delicious. And of course, the Village Bake Shop has all your other sweet cravings taken care of too. Plus their world-famous thumbprint cookies that are shipped all over the world. The Village Bake Shop, Village Green Town Center, right here in Cleveland. Phone 476-5179.
The Bald-Headed Bistro has a brand new menu offering more value for your dollar. The Bald-Headed Bistro, Western fine dining in the heart of the South. The best bar and happy hour in town. The Bald-Headed Bistro in the Village Green, Cleveland.
You're listening to 99.9 Whoop FM. Check us out online at whoopfm.com and enjoy great classic country and bluegrass favorites right here all day on 99.9 Whoop FM.
So let's do a couple of tunes by some of the great blues men. Lowell George, and Robert Johnson. Now when I was a young boy, about the age of 5, my mama told me, son, you'll be the meanest man alive. Ain't that a man?
Where'd the old town go? They moved it on north of here in the shopping mall. Ooh, where'd the old town go? Did my hometown get old, or just me? Did all my friends get old, or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told, or just me?
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9 or on the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. We're talking about the Colonel Benjamin Cleveland monument that will be coming up April 19th. Now, I told you to get your pencils out before I go on. I should say thanks to John Cook, who wrote our theme song, who also wrote all the original music for our Caney Creek documentary. So thanks for John writing Old Town Cleveland. It's about him and his brother growing up in Cleveland and going down when Cokes were 10 cents, and you could go to the movie all day long for 10 cents.
Right here in Cleveland, Tennessee.
You can't go to any movie for 10 cents. You can't even rent one for now. 10 cents. But,
No.
The Cleveland Speedway documentary coming up. We need these type items from people. We need pictures, of course. We need.
Now, they don't have to be professionally made pictures.
Oh, any
If
picture.
you've got a picture of your grandpa standing by his race car, please get us a copy made.
Right. 8mm film, videos. We need pictures of helmets, or we'll come take a picture of helmets, their old racing suits. Or if you have an old car sitting out in the woods, I'd love to find an old race car sitting out in the wood that time has taken its toll on, a tree growing up through the
I
middle of it.
imagine there's a few well-preserved ones in garages somewhere.
A well-preserved one would be nice, too. We also need to talk to people who raced at the racetrack, people who worked at the track, and, of course, fans. And I'm looking for the little guy back in the 70s, early 70s, who stood down there and was a flagman. His mom had made him his own little suit and his own flags, and he flagged every race I ever went to down there. I grew up down the street from the racetrack, so I spent a lot of time there as a kid. So there's one thing, and I'll get to my next list here in just a second. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, does anybody there know anything about APD 40? How did it get its name? And I can't find it out.
I can tell you that very easily. In 1960s, President Johnson passed a bill called the Appalachian Development Project, and that is Appalachian Development Project number 40 out of Project Corridor J or K, one of those two.
J, I believe.
I actually seen another APD somewhere I was traveling the other day, but ours is APD 40. It's Appalachian Development Project. Or Appalachian.
And it did exactly what he thought it would do. It'd bring business into rural areas.
Yeah.
But that's what it means.
That's perfect. I've been waiting for years to hear that answer.
You need to tune in to hear to Old Town Cleveland more often, because we tell you useless information every
we
week.
know all that useless stuff. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for being a listener.
Right.
I wanted to say that the class of 1973 is also having their reunion May the 18th, and if you haven't gotten in touch with them, they're old.
40 years.
They have a Facebook page. Also, Charleston Historical Society is going to have their meeting at their new Welcome Center in Charleston, April the 21st. I'm going to be the guest speaker there. And then on April 16th, Dr. Bass is coming to Bradley County. And you can pick up tickets at the desk, the front desk at the Cleveland Public Library. I believe they're $10 for just to come hear him speak. And it's going to be right here at the Village Green in the old theater out back. Okay, great. And that benefits the Friends of the Library. Okay, Ron, contact information.
All right. Hello. If you would like to contact Old Town Cleveland, you can go to our Facebook page, or you can go to our website, oldtowncleveland.com, and you'll find numbers and email addresses to call us there. And Deb is writing her new book called The Historical Houses of Bradley County. That's the working title right now. And we're looking for homes at least 100 years old. And one of the things to be included in the we don't care if the house still has to be standing today. It may not be in great shape, but we want a before and after picture. We'd love to have a picture of some of your family members standing out in front of it in an A model Ford or something of that. And if you can tell us the history of it. It doesn't have to be one of the big fancy houses on Ocoee Street. It can be that little farmhouse down on the county line, which, unbelievable, there's a lot of 100-year-old houses out there. So, and hopefully we'll include in that book a driving map so that you'll be able to drive around and look at these old historical homes. And like I say, that if contact us at Old Town Cleveland once again. And so that's all my announcements for right now.
Okay, Post Office Box 981, Cleveland, Tennessee, 37364. That is our mailing address. Don't call the Ron Moore in the phone book, and don't send stuff to that address, because that's not us. But it's Ron or Debbie Moore at Post Office Box 981, Cleveland, Tennessee, 37364. If you want to order the DVD and book, it's $27.25.
That's shipping and everything.
Shipping and everything. You can mail it to Post Office Box 981, Cleveland, Tennessee, 37364.
Or order online at Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah.
Website for the museum. Tell them what that is real quick.
www.museumcenter.org.
Museumcenter.org. Okay. And you can find out all the events coming up and schedules there.
Absolutely.
If you'd like to join.
Yes.
You know, that is very reasonable. We just got our family members.
$25 is the individual membership, and I think it goes up from there.
$50. I believe we paid $50 for a family membership, which is not bad at all. We were charter members back when we first started, when the museum started. Matter of fact, I remember taking our children down before you broke ground, and they had an event there for all the new charter members, and they got their picture made on the old fire truck.
Yeah, I was able to see that for the first time last week too.
Mm-hmm.
That's really nice.
Isn't that nice? And we've got a lot of hidden treasures in Bradley County, and we hope that you're going to help bring some of that out of the closets and into the museum.
I think we ought to do snake handling down there and have some demonstrations.
Well, I don't think we should have demonstrations, but I think if you did an exhibit, it would be fabulous.
For you to do a demonstration.
You do it, Ron. You do it.
We actually did a show on snake handling, and this is the birthplace of basically modern day snake handling here in Cleveland, down at the Hamilton County, Bradley County line, there on the mountain down there. And George Wynn Hensley was appointed by A.J. Thomason as a Church of God minister, and he started doing snake handling. And they soon separated, though, after a while there. And but it's pretty interesting. And
the old Thomason house is still here.
The state law that says that you cannot handle snakes in a public setting, it comes out of activity out of Cleveland, Tennessee. There was a preacher was preaching, a young boy got bit by a snake.
Mm-hmm.
So he died, and they having his funeral, and the preacher was preaching, the snake bit him, and he died.
What?
And then the next preacher
his brother-in-law
come on and bit him, and he died. So that was 3 deaths in about a week, and the state law was finally passed. And of course, he had to get around the religious freedom thing, so they said you can't display them. That's why they have the small boxes. There's a slot in the back of a snake handling church. Someone always stood outside when the police come in. The snakes slid out the back door and they were gone.
So you may have started something.
All right. Good morning, folks. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Debbie, you said that Ron Moore in the book wasn't y'all's?
No, it's not us.
I've been calling Ron Moore for ages. And
That's why he hadn't answered you, Red. I feel sorry for those folks sometimes because we have never had our phone number listed in the book. And those poor people, I'm sure they throw my mail away and they hang up on people all the time.
That other, well, there's several Ron Moore, but the one that most people call was a city policeman for many years. And it was funny, at one time, Ron and I both worked at the sheriff's department and rode in the same car together. And all the drunks knew they were singing Double then.
I'm just kidding. I really didn't.
Okay.
But he used to get all my mail. But one time he got my new cookware that I'd ordered after I got married, that I'd bought Deb for a present, and all that waterless cookware and all that. He got that. And he says he's keeping that.
Yeah. He did deliver it in the patrol car, which was pretty funny.
And when I was the manager of the cable system, every time the NASCAR went out, Ron got a lot of calls.
I do have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Those two songs that John used to play on there, I Don't Know Why I Love You Like I Do, and Going Down for the Last Time.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Tell me who sings them.
Linda
May.
Linda May sings both of them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We play a lot of local music.
Kurt Jelly Roll Johnson from Cleveland, Tennessee, who's one of the premier harmonica players in Nashville now, is one of the people that played on it. And a guy named Thumbs Carlisle, which the very last recording he ever did was on that song, and he did that here in Cleveland. And Thumbs Carlisle was a guy, if you remember Roger Miller's, what was it?
Trailers for King
of the Road. You heard the thumb snaps. That was Thumbs Carlisle. That's how he got famous. But he actually was the best guitar player ever. So now, how's that?
Okay, let's go back to the mountain feel.
Oh, tell us about SAR.
Yeah.
I mean, Sons of America. Tell us about what that organization is and how you become a member.
The SAR is an organization that's celebrating, 150 years now? Sons of the American Revolution. The organization was formed as a remembrance organization for those children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the patriots who fought and in many cases died for the formation of the country. And our chapter's been in existence now for
10 years.
I was going to say 10 years because I was still pretty active, and it's done a great job. As I mentioned Stan Evans earlier, he and Maggie and those early members who joined as a result of his visitation and meeting with the DAR resulted in the Colonel Benjamin chapter. And now we're the largest chapter in the state of Tennessee. We have over 160 members. And its purpose is to foster and to perpetuate the remembrance of what America is all about and the way our forefathers offered themselves up for their country. I'm not going to make any sidebar comment about today's generation, but we do invite people who are interested in the activities of the organization. What we do for those that suspect that they had ancestors that were active participants or providers, whether they provided money, whether they were sutlers or mercantile specialists who provided the resources to fight the battles, like Mary Patton, she gave 500 pounds of homemade gunpowder to the Over Mountain men back in September of 1780. So
that was a valuable resource.
Absolutely, because it was all taxed and it was all held in reserve by the British Army. So there are a lot of people in the past who offered themselves up to their country, and our organization is specifically centered on the American Revolution. And every year we involve in educational activities with our schools, sponsoring programs as well as speeches and projects for them to do, and we have several scholarships for young people. In addition to that, we have a monthly meeting in Cleveland. And what we try to do is not just have a meeting, but have an educational session where we bring in experts, not just experts, even people who are fascinated by certain topics and want to share that with others. And you all have been there, and you know the quality of the program, the presentation. So
what's the program this month?
We've got Josh Coleman,
Mm-hmm.
who is a sculptor of the statue of Colonel Cleveland, will be there on the 11th, and night 11th, Thursday.
Yeah. Overhill's up in Athens tomorrow. I'm getting confused. Yeah.
But I had a sort of a selfish motive for joining. I didn't know anything about my family. My folks, I knew I was from East Tennessee. I knew my granddad was a Wilson. And about 5 years ago, I found I had time to participate. And so I contacted several members, and I said, I need to find out about my family. I know about what we did during the Civil War, but I don't know anything else about it. And it took Stan about 15 minutes in Knoxville at the East Tennessee
Stan is an incredible researcher.
Absolutely.
And is willing to help anybody.
Lynn Freeman and the rest. These guys really know the families, the first families of Tennessee. I think they probably knew them personally. But anyway.
After you research them for a while, you feel like you do.
They really did a fantastic job. And like I say, in a period of 15 minutes, I found them. And in visiting White's Fort, Robert McGinnis up there, who is the curator, I walked in there and he said, well, would you like to know where your granddad's buried? And he didn't even have to think twice about it. He says, well, let's go get lunch and we'll go out to Seymour and I'll show you where your great-granddad's buried.
Amazing.
Actually, it was my great-great-great-granddad.
And what was his name?
James Wilson. He died in 1868 and was buried.
That look on my face is
I
think I'm related to him.
Well, my ancestor was Joseph Wilson, who was a magistrate of all things. I didn't know this 5 years ago, but he was a judge under 7 different forms of government. 3 of them were not American or colonial. They were the territory south of the Ohio, the Watauga Association, and the state of Franklin. He performed the marriage ceremony for John Sevier and Kate. Andrew Jackson practiced in his court in Washington District. And, it's just, it opened a whole new facet of my life and my family, so that I've got something like my cousins are just sort of knocked over when I was telling them about it.
I think you can end up, we can all be cousins if you get to
you got to be careful.
You got to think about there wasn't a very wide span of people here at that time, so a lot of us have. But in the area, in Polk County, I know at Greasy Creek we have an 1812 soldier, Elijah Clayton, buried there. I went to his marking of his about 20 years ago, and they were playing the bagpipes out in the mountains of Greasy Creek, and I could just imagine what the folks over on the other ridge were saying. What is that sound, But also here we have only one Revolutionary soldier that we know of that's buried here, and it's down on Charlie Hanna's farm, down on Dalton Pike, and that's Mr. Lusk. Yeah. And then we have, I know that my great-grandpa, Peter Greenfield, was living down close to Mount Carmel Church when he died, and he's listed on the census as a War of 1812 soldier. And then, of course, up in Calhoun, we have Governor McMahon that's buried there in that little bitty cemetery.
And it was an interesting thing. I had a phone call from a friend of mine, and he said, by the way, you know all these about these graveyards and stuff. Where can I find somebody that has been there and done this and done that? Coming to find out, he is the 5th great-grandson of a soldier in the Revolution. And I asked him, I said, well, has that gravesite ever been marked? And he said no. But for the rain earlier this week, we would have gone out there to look at it. But
so it's a Revolutionary soldier?
Revolutionary soldier. And
which cemetery is he supposed to be in?
I don't know. I don't know the name of it, but it's on Mahan Gap Road.
Oh, I'm not familiar with it. Is it in Bradley County or McMinn County?
It's probably on the state line somewhere.
Because there's one when you go down Ladd Springs Road, too, and you cross over 411, and it's Mountain Spring or Spring something, little church right there. There's a Revolutionary War soldier in that cemetery, too, and it's marked.
Okay. But this one apparently has never been honored, and so we're going to work on that. That's another of our projects.
Well, now, George Washington Moore, which is out of the Dairy Farm Moors up in Charleston and Calhoun, he lived there until he got very, very old in his 80s, and then he moved over to Birchwood, and he and his friend Thomas, I'll think of his name here in a few minutes, they're buried over there in the Little Connor Cemetery. So there's two just across the line in Birchwood.
Have they been marked at all?
I don't know. I mean, they're marked. I don't know if the sons of the American Revolution have marked them.
The Lutz guy,
I can help you find those.
The Lutz is Charlie Hanna, their dairy farm down there, but also Chief Snyder. Is out of that family
too.
Out of that family also.
So is Mr. Steele that was here a few weeks ago.
And one thing I asked the SAR, and I'm glad to be a member too. Stan, I knew that I had a member that already when Stan started, but I found 5 different legs. I had 5 different relatives that were Revolutionary War soldiers.
That's fantastic.
And but next time we do one of those grave markings, let's don't do it on a day when it's 110 up a hill.
We missed the wagon ride to the top of the hill, and I walked up, and when I got there, they said, "Okay, now Debbie, tell us about southern cemeteries," and I was just like.
As you remember, they postponed it for an hour or two so it could be a little hotter.
Yeah, really.
I appreciated that too. So,
but that's what the SAR does, and like I say, it was it was really selfish of me, but I figure I'm paying back now, and I'm really proud to be a member, and we're working with such wonderful people. And the big thing for me is to start getting our members to do the research on their ancestors. And I don't really care about the name so much as what they did during their lifetimes. Mm-hmm. What were the living conditions? What were the occupations? What was a settler? There are all kinds of, what was a commissary? There are just all kinds of things that were happening back then that our children and great-grandchildren, grandchildren and great-grand will never know unless we provide that record and keep demonstrating it to the community.
Well, and some of the best records were made in the early 1900s when people were coming into the Daughters of the American Revolution and the other organizations like that you can go back and find those old applications, and there's information on there that you can't find anywhere else,
in the
Bible records.
The WPA.
Oh, the WPA did a lot of
all
records.
of those work projects that were available that saved the movement. There are differing views on the movement of the cemeteries as a result of the Tennessee Valley Authority, but one thing about it documented them and it preserved them if they could.
If they could. Now, unfortunately, when Tennessee Power came in, they just put the water over them. Best I can tell.
Unfortunately, the National Archives down in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, Buford, really, what's the little community right there where the National Archives is no longer open to the public. You cannot go in anymore.
Well, you can make an appointment and go.
Yeah, but
some of the for instance, the Dumpling Valley group out of Sevier County and up in that, they had a group go down and look at all the TVA records because they've got photographs of the grave sites.
We went and
we posted some on Old Town.
We were there and because we were working on the Tennessee Valley Power, Tennessee Electric Power, which owned the Ocoee Dams, and they sued each other. And when they took over, every record of the takeover is there at the National Archives.
See, that's wonderful.
And we literally went through, and then we went through the TVA.
But what we didn't know, Van, is before we went, we should have called 2 or 3 days in advance and told them what we would be looking at, because they freeze the old negatives. And so when we got there, some of the things that we wanted to look at was frozen, and we didn't get to look at them. But we did find pictures there. Matter of fact, the cover of our DVD is a picture that no one had ever seen before here locally, and it came out of the National Archives of Caney Creek.
But as we were speaking, in September of 1780, in a place called Sycamore Shoals, about 1,000 men from East Tennessee, from Western North Carolina, from Southern Virginia up in Abingdon, and those areas, those populated areas at the time, they all met just south of Elizabethton, Tennessee. And that's where they formed up, and they began their 2-week journey over the mountain. They went over the pass there at Roan Mountain, Yellow Mountain, and down into North Carolina. And they ended up, after pretty much a harrowing trip, Phil knows a lot about that. I think he's made that journey once or twice. But I know he's been out in the woods when it was rainy and cold and tents were blowing away and things like that. But they made that journey to what turned out to be Kings Mountain. And on the early morning of the 5th, the pickets were found and located, and some of them were removed by rather crude implements, tomahawks and knives and so forth. And the soldiers massed. They spread their forces around the base of the mountain and proceeded up with those generals. I say generals, they were colonels, Cleveland and Campbell and Johnson and Sevier and McDowell, and I think that's probably it, with a force of about 1,000 men. And some of them were mounted infantry. It was much easier to ride a horse than it was to walk, but there were a lot of guys that had to walk. And you got to remember, they didn't forage. They carried their own with them, and they weren't paid for this. But they knew the price of freedom, and they had to pay it. They'd done that at Bannockburn and a lot of Sterling Bridge and a lot of other places in their history. And that tradition, the Scottish Highlander tradition, was brought to this country. And this was the major battle in the South. I say it's probably the most important. I won't say it was the only major one, but it was the most important in terms of the defeat of the British Army in the South. But most people don't realize that when our Over Mountain men went up the mountain, they weren't fighting British citizens. If they were technically, I guess, but they were what we refer to as loyalists and Tories. They were our brothers and fathers and cousins and uncles who didn't want to separate themselves from the English king. So it was a loyalist force on top of the mountain with a few British officers. I know we had Patrick Ferguson that was there, Major Ferguson, and I think there were a couple of captains. Is that right, Phil?
Yes.
And they went up the mountain 3 or 4 times, in fact, in a period of an hour and 5 minutes. And they defeated the force piecemeal. And they won the day. And what did they do? They turned around and came home. And that's what it's all about. They were fighting for
now, there was
their
someone
country.
at Kings Mountain that I remember reading about, but I don't recall a name. He was shot and his boot filled up with blood, and somebody local. Anybody remember that story?
Was that Robert?
Maybe he perished.
No,
I don't
he
know.
didn't die.
Who was
Well,
it?
they had one colonel that did die, and I think he did bleed to death.
And who was he?
And I can't remember. I should have reviewed that a little better.
I've got one of the best resources.
Well, I just recall that reading that story and people talking about how he continued to fight even though he was wounded, and he was on his horse, and when they got him down off the horse, his entire boot was full of blood, and I think he might have bled out there on the battlefield. I think
that sounds like what happened at Shiloh.
No.
No, that happened.
Well, that happened a lot of
Yeah,
places. Yeah. But I think that it's pretty interesting that these people weren't being paid. They were just doing what they thought was right. So we had 1,000 people. And so how big was the other side?
Almost matched them man for man.
About 1,200.
Matched them man to man. Okay.
And,
now, Fort Armistead, Am I saying that right?
Right. Armistead was
Where's that?
was part of the federal road from South Carolina across the mountain and into western Monroe County.
Okay.
And that's the one that Lee University
He is
has
doing the
been,
archaeological dig on, and they have found foundations and all kinds of wonderful stuff. And we have found volunteers.
And you need to get correction. You need to get
Merle.
Well, Merle and Richard Jones over here because they've even found more extensive artifacts over there. And, of course, now it's a federally protected project with cameras and everything out in the middle of the woods.
Well,
it's
good.
up
It should be.
Coker Creek.
Yeah, we went to Coker Creek the other day, and all we found was the Welcome Center.
But
Phil, while he's looking at that, you talked about the Indians being involved. Was it the Cherokee or the other tribes also, or just the Cherokee?
Primarily the Cherokees in this area.
And they're the ones who basically attacked Fort Loudon too, then, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And what time period was that?
That's in the 1830s. Okay. Fort Loudon lasted only 2 years, and the British had established Fort Loudon really to supply the Indians, and due to a different British garrison executing some Indians, things went downhill, and the Cherokees took revenge on the garrison at Fort Loudon.
And that was kind of a strange thing. That I've taken the Cherokee history course twice now, and they talk about blood law. And if there were 3 Cherokee killed, then the Cherokee would just kind of kill the first 3 white people they saw.
That's correct. Yeah.
That you just took revenge, and it didn't matter if those were the people that. And then the white people would not understand what their thinking was, and so they'd go out and kill a lot more Cherokee as revenge. Well, then the Cherokee go, okay, 38, and they'd go out and find 38 and kill them. I mean, it just went on and on and on, and unfortunately, a lot of people, innocent people, were killed during all that.
Fort Loudon, the history of Fort Loudon, at the surrender, when they were told that they were going to be given safe passage back over to that northernmost or northwesternmost fort in South Carolina, North Carolina, and they were executed on the way. I think there were 1 or 2 that escaped from.
There's quite a few, but they.
Now that's someplace you really need to see too. You can go up to Loudon and you can see Fort Loudon Park. They have a wonderful film there that kind of explains everything, and then they have a fort set up there. Of course, it's all reproductions, but it looks really, really good. And they'll explain to you, why it's there and stuff. And then just a short distance away, you can go to Sequoia Birthplace Museum that is operated by the Eastern Band of the Cherokees, another fabulous place to go. And they have activities there all year round, too. Now, I think at the Fort Loudon, they have something almost monthly where you have reenactors there. Garrison Days. And they bring in excellent speakers to both of those places.
If you ever have an opportunity, folks really need to try to go the first weekend of September. That's when Fort Loudon has their trade day, and they have a lot of vendors and sutlers and put on a attack on the fort. It's really well done.
Doesn't have something in Sequoia right down the street also at the same time?
Yes, they have the trade days there also. Okay. Ron and I were amazed. We went to I set up at the Civil War show down in Dalton this year in February, and there was a fellow across the aisle from us that was making those reenactment costumes.
Yeah,
and
I saw that. Yeah.
He was making them for the serious folks.
Yeah.
Because some of his pants were selling for $400 and $500 because they were hand stitched, and I thought I can hand stitch pants for that kind of money.
Phil, do you still shoot your cannon off?
But occasionally, yes.
Is that an old cannon or is it a new cannon?
No, it's basically a reproduction. It's a South Bend barrel, and now there's a couple of parts that are in place that are original.
Now, are you the one that created all the problem up at Charleston School? At the Henniker House, did you fire your cannon off that day? And then,
let me say this.
And all
some of the crew
school resource officers started coming from all over the county.
Well, it was so funny. It happened to be in the office down at Black Fox, and our SRO officer jumped to his feet, and he started out the door, and he stopped, and he looked at me, and he said, is something historic going on in Charleston this morning? I said, yes, they're putting a sign out at the Henniger House, and I can't go. He just got on the phone and says, never mind, it's just the historians, because they started reporting these large booms in Charleston, and so all the SRO officers were heading that way.
I think Faye Calloway failed to mention when they had the bridge burning.
Mm-hmm.
We were firing the cannon up there during that and they failed to tell Calhoun, and they
thought they were on
fire.
They thought they were on fire. Yeah, we laughed for a long time about burning that concrete bridge. Tell us again about what's going to happen at the Museum Center and what folks can come see and hear and do that day.
Well, I guess after the unveiling of the wonderful sculpture of Benjamin Cleveland that we have going up, immediately after that, we're welcoming people to come over to the Museum Center to come and see the exhibit, to come enjoy. I think there'll be some food there as well. And then
what time's
also
the food?
Shortly after 10 o'clock.
Right, shortly after 10
I'm on a diet, unfortunately, now. Yeah.
Well, you can watch other people eat it.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
You're right, yeah.
Mine's going to be over in 15 minutes.
Yeah. I'll say a few words, and then the festivities will begin. We'll hope people will come and see the exhibit, see some of the wonderful artifacts that we'll have on display, experience the rest of the museum as well, and drop some dollars in the gift shop.
There you go.
April 19th is a Friday.
Friday morning.
Right, Friday morning, 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have the Renaissance Choir from Cleveland High, as well as Jim Burton and the Cleveland High School Band. Mm-hmm. We'll have, as I know right now, we'll have some members of the Watauga Fife and Drum Corps.
Oh, be great.
It depends. It's just given the vagaries of everybody's lives trying to get everybody together. But we'll have period dress.
Yeah.
We'll have scouts there to assist in handling traffic, and we'll have a few chairs out for those that need them. And
why did you point at me?
I just sort of reminded me of the need.
Well, I think probably the most fascinating thing for you guys have been watching the development of the making of the statue. Oh, yeah. Now, exactly how does that process start? And I don't even know where to start.
I guess the best thing to do is attend next week's SAR meeting, chapter meeting, when Josh goes through that process. But it starts with a concept, and once you come up with a generalized pose, etc., he starts with just a frame, a metal frame, screen wire, and it's almost like a paper mache out of metal. And then, I don't know how many pounds of clay, but there is a water-based clay that you just start applying till you form, really the duplicate of the master of the statue. I've witnessed a lot of it. He has to keep it moist; it'll dry.
Now, where did he make this?
The clay model was made down in the old mill.
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And after that's completed, then it's taken. It was taken to the foundry, and there they apply. As I understand it, I didn't witness all this, but I've seen the after results, a thick layer of like latex to the statue.
Huh.
And when I say thick, it's probably a half-inch plus. And then after that cures, they place a casting of plaster over that. It's a little unclear. I'm not sure this is a wax type. If they, then after they take that off of the plaster part, it's assembled in parts, and actually the statue is cast in pieces.
So what is the finished product actually made out of?
Bronze.
Bronze.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if someone else, let's say that his hometown wanted a duplicate of that, would they be able to use that same
that could be
okay.
done. Yeah.
so they could make
Yeah,
duplicates
you wouldn't have
of
to go through the process of making the original.
And so, how
Plymouth.
long and who's Coleman? Is that who's
Josh Coleman? Yeah, Josh is he teaches school now, I think, in Hamilton County, but he has he is from Cleveland. His father actually, I think, owns the Hardwick Mill. Dr. Coleman, yeah. He's a son
How
of.
well, I'm so glad a local person made that.
Is he doing this for other people too, or other types of statues?
He does their artwork. To my knowledge, this is the first project like this.
I started to say, where was he trained to do this?
You've seen the yellow chair down on the Greenway?
Yeah.
That's one
of
his.
And the Esplanade sculpture in the little courtyard there at the museum.
Okay.
Over on the east wall.
Okay.
Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
What do you say there, Grandpa Walton?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Neil.
I'm doing good. This is Jerry.
This is Jerry.
I'm sorry, Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he called me Grandpa Walton. I said, good night, Jerry.
Oh, man. No, hanging out down here at the Olympic Field down here at Lee University for the Veterans Day.
Yes, sir.
And I tell you what, we got a good crowd down here today, and we're going to be down here working this till 5 p.m. Good chance to come out and honor our veterans and stuff. Just wanted to let y'all know that.
Tell us what all's going on down there.
Man, I don't know what all they got going on down here. We're down here working the traffic for them and stuff, but they've got a lot of activities, food, games for the kids and stuff, so a lot of bouncy toys and stuff for the kids to do. So just a good day to get out and honor our veterans and have a little fun, too.
That's great. For you people, the Lee University Olympic baseball field is actually behind Ocoee Middle School. If you go up Ocoee Street, just go behind Ocoee Middle School or go down Parker and you'll come to the baseball field there. That's sort of a joint project between Bradley County and Lee University there, putting that baseball field there where I used to practice football out there in that grass. So, but yeah, just make sure you go by there. And you say it lasts till 5 or 5:30?
Till 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. All right. Sounds great.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jerry.
Next week on Next week on Old Town Cleveland, we're going to have Ken Jones and a bunch of his buddies from all over Bradley County. They're going to come in and play live music for us. And we're going to be doing a few breaks during the day to talk about Chalk the Walk on the walkway, the Greenway, that's going on next week, too. So be sure to tune in next week for some good music. And
then the following week, we're going to talk about bushwhackers.
Yes.
Larry
Stevens.
Yeah, it's coming out. He wrote a book about Gatewood, who killed 16, 17 people right up here in Polk County. And we'll talk about how bushwhackers worked in the Civil War and what it meant to be a bushwhacker. And that wasn't a good term usually.
No, not at all.
So, and then after that, I believe we have, gosh, I can't remember now, bushwhackers, and then...
I don't know. We're booked up way up into May. Is all I remember.
There's some good.
We got the Bee Lady coming on the last week in April. The Bee Lady and Kim Frady from the Agricultural Center is going to be talking about planting things and pollinating things.
And the first weekend in May, we got the Ken Rush from the
Ducktown Museum coming in.
Talk about Copper Hill, and everyone remembers Copper Hill if you grew up in this area. It used to be all dirt, red, clay, muddy dirt. For years.
He hadn't been on in about 3 years, so everybody's going to enjoy that, too.
So, well, we're going to try to wrap up here a little bit today. Ken, tell us Ken, I pointed to Ken. Ken's up in there. Hassan. Yeah. Hassan. Okay. There you go.
You'll get
Hassan.
it. Yeah, I will. Tell us the hours of the museum, when people can come, cost, all that.
Sure. Yeah. That's all great information, and I'm just learning it. I think we're open from 10 to 5, Tuesday through Saturday. Friday. And then Saturday, 10 to 3.
Yes.
We're closed on Sunday, closed on Monday. Admission is... I've never had to pay admission.
I believe it's $5 for just general admission for adults, and that gets you into all the exhibits there, including the special exhibits.
Of course, if you're a member, you don't have to pay that price.
That's
now,
right.
Is it sometime on Saturday? Isn't it a free trip?
The first weekend of each month, the Saturday admission is free
That's
to the public.
As long as the director continues to do that, right?
Right.
Which I think is a nice
That
thing.
would be today, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would. And then you have special events there, and people can rent the facility too. Who do they-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can call Ken Cagle for that. You just call the main line and ask for Ken. But also you can go on the website, and everyone's contact info is on there as well. And, of course, upcoming events and exhibits can all be found online.
And we're going to get together this week and
Yes, we will.
hopefully arrange a showing of the Caney Creek documentary for those of you who might have missed it when we showed it a couple weekends ago. And so we'll be sure to tell you about that right here on Old Town Cleveland.
You know, the archaeological programs that the museums had down there have been really wonderful. The Cherokee Days and as well as the programs at Richard Jones and we've got a real close alliance with Lee University with regard to those things because
I've
we've
been to
got a
several
common
good
interest
things there.
And now we're going to have some interns working from Lee and the archaeological department that need to learn about curation and so forth.
There you go. Free help's a good kind of help.
We know where there's some excellent places they need to do digs. We won't say them over there, of course, but there's some. We know where there is a council circle.
Absolutely.
And
I went in to see years ago a presentation about Cherokee women, and that book is for sale, I believe, in your bookstore. And that is a local author, by the way. She grew up here. Don't recall her name right now, but I remember seeing that. We saw Dr. Sullivan there talking about the archaeological digs up in Charleston, Tennessee.
that was great, yeah.
And
the Wild River documentary was
the Wild River documentary had over 100 people come, like on a Thursday night or something, or a Tuesday night. That was pretty good. And we've shown the movie.
Sunday afternoon programs have always been popular.
Yeah, and the guy who done the sculpture, his mind just went blank. What's his name?
Peter
Toth.
Peter Toth.
Peter
Yeah.
Toth. He came in when he repaired the statue. He come in and done a presentation.
Yeah, I've seen some images of that.
And then
what was so fun about that was that the projector system wouldn't work, and they struggled with it, and all these people tried to help him get it going, and some kid about 9 years old went, "Should we plug it up?" And he held up the plug, and it was pretty fun. And he had a real good sense of humor
and
about
we're just
it
saying
all.
all these things could just let you know what all is going down at the museum, and sign up, become a member. We had I'll never get his name, Dusseldorf and Tom Jester. I can't think. Yeah. They done they photographed Appalachia, and they are,
and
of course,
did audio recordings.
And very fortunate for us, what happened is we got them to come do that morning, done our show, and then they were live at the museum after they left here. It worked out pretty good, because there was a lot of people.
We had a
showed
big
up for
crowd
that.
there.
And what's the trash for treasure guy? The American Pickens?
The American Pickers were there too. That was a really big show too.
Yeah. We had over 300 people for that.
That's good.
So,
That's really
and that was really a popular
So
presentation.
there's a lot of things going on down at the museum center, and wedding receptions, reunions, parties, whatever. Parties.
Well, now Cherry's Jubilee's coming up too. Is that at the museum center?
Next weekend, Friday at 7.
Yeah.
All right,
That's next week.
It's kind of hard to explain. People have taken old furniture items and they refurbish them and make them kind of artsy. Especially the chairs. And there's birdhouses and all kinds of things there.
And
that
food.
They have food.
I always bring up food in most of these.
And you pay an admission fee, and then you go in and you're able to bid on these items to purchase them, and that money goes to the arts.
The arts and cultural or
the Allied Arts, I believe, or arts and education, maybe.
Right, yeah.
And you can pick up fabulous things there, and it helps a very good cause, a very, very good cause, because those folks are always coming out and doing programs in the schools where we lack art projects.
Okay, Summer, you got anything last minute thing to say?
As he points the crooked finger at you.
Not at all. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Van Deeken.
Thank you for being a voice for the past.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. We try.
That's what's really important, and that's
Thank
what
you.
we do at the museum, and we'll also be looking to the future, and that's what's so important.
Absolutely.
I think since we've started doing this program, there's been a resurgence of interest in local history, and people have found out it doesn't have to be all the old stuffy stuff. It's just remembering the restaurants that were downtown in the 1960s.
The social history of Cleveland from the 1920s and 30s would be interesting.
I tell you, the most calls we ever got on the show, you'll never believe what it was about. Gas stations.
Really? That's cool.
Our guest never got to say a word for 2 hours.
He
The
sat back and
phones
grinned.
rung for 2 hours, and people says, I worked at the gas station, and I got a great story I'll tell you off air, because the person who told me to tell it, he can't tell you, so I'm not going to tell you that he said this, but you'll have to hear that one. You won't.
I just want to echo what Van said. Thank you for what you do. I think it's a real asset and
It's just fun.
Well, it's a lot of work, actually, and y'all know that.
Yeah.
You know, calling people and arranging the shows and kind of educating ourselves a little bit so that we can ask good questions and being here every Saturday. I think since in the last almost 4 years, there was only one Saturday that we were not on the air. Or somebody was here substituting for us, and that's quite a dedication for a volunteer job.
All right, listen. Hassan.
Yes.
I got it. All right.
Thank you.
You got a final word?
Yeah, I just want to, say thanks to you guys for having this. This is a great outlet, especially for all the wonderful history that we have in this town. I know every generation, the young kids, they don't care about history. But I think, a lot of you, when you were young, you probably didn't care about history either. But I figure the way I see it, as people get older, they search to make meaning in their life. And as people get older, they start to look back, and they start to look back at their roots and their history. So I don't think that's something that'll ever go away. And thanks for everybody that's been welcoming me to the museum and to Cleveland. If you haven't stopped in and say hi to me yet, I'd love for you to stop by. And just thanks for all the support.
Right. And please remember Whoop Radio when you have announcements about any of your activities. We're all volunteers here. There's no paid staff here. So if you want us to announce something, you're going to have to tell us, because most of us don't have time to go out and research it there. Folks, that's been Old Town Cleveland. As I always say at the end of every program, go get your old pictures out of the drawers, out of those boxes, and start writing names on the back of them. Take a little paper label and write on the label, then put it on there, and then talk to your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your mom and your dad. Talk to those people who live down the street. A picture of your family may bring some interest in I worked with that man, or I used to shop with that guy. You can do what happened on this street, what happened with your family. One of my prized possessions is my cousin recorded my grandfather before he died, and we have about a 30-minute interview of my grandfather talking about his father and his grandfather, and it's really a great thing to have. We'll always remember Pearl Harbor, but we may not know what happened on your street and in your town and in your family. So it's up to you, folks. Start doing it now. We'll see you next week, folks. We're going to have crazy Ken Jones in here doing some live music, and we'll just talk about the history of music next week. Sort of a fun show since after this stuff you got. No, this is great. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, folks.
Thank you.
There's something